Patricia DeBryan is looking for love in all the wrong places. To wit, the personal section of the local paper. In the fall of 1992, her ad draws a response from a would-be Romeo named John Vasey.
Oh, yeah, he was ideal. He was a real Sir Galahad. He was the knight in shining armor. He was all those things.
The romance finds fertile soil and blossoms. On June 19, 1993, the couple marries. With Patricia's 2 children in tow, they move to Galena, Illinois, the town itself a throwback to a more romantic time and place. The happily ever afters, however, do not follow. Around 3:20 in the afternoon, River Ridge Elementary School lets out. Patricia Vasey's 10-year-old daughter, Cassie, finds her stepfather, John Vasey, waiting for her at the curb.
He picked us up from school, and we stopped at a few places. We stopped and I got ice cream, and then he stopped at his work for a few minutes, and then we went back to my house.
When Cassie finally arrives home with her stepfather, she's surprised to find the shades drawn. John Vasey unlocks the door and Cassie runs in. She finds her mother lying face up on the dining room floor.
The first thought that occurred to me was that maybe she had hurt her back or something, so she laid down. But she did look discolored. The body looked discolored.
Minutes later, an ambulance arrives to take his wife to Galena Stouse Hospital, where the 34-year-old woman is pronounced dead on arrival. When they open up Patricia's body, they discovered a congenital heart defect. The pathologist rules that Patricia Vasey died from a sudden heart arrhythmia caused by the congenital heart defect. Patricia's family doesn't buy it. As for the grieving husband, John Vasey largely disappears until one winter morning, nearly 3 years later. In the small moments of night, the village of Cary, Illinois sleeps when a call comes across the police radio.
911, what is your emergency?
There's a fire next door.
A small home is ablaze with a family believed trapped inside.
A man came running out and he came towards me and yelling that his family was still trapped inside the house.
At the end of one hallway, they find an open bedroom. Inside it, a woman face down next to a bed.
And we picked her up, and as soon as we picked her up, I said, "Here's a little guy." He was right underneath her.
Cary Police Sergeant Ed Fetzer follows the ambulance in a squad car. With him is the boy's father and the woman's husband. His name, John Vasey. Later that morning, Jerry DeBryan is heading south on Interstate 355, listening to the morning news.
They talk about a Christmas tree fire.
We got a problem there. Let's check.
They closed the segment by saying it was the home of John Vasey. That's the morning I knew it was all bad, bad, bad.
Jerry DeBryan pulls off the highway and calls his wife, Betty. They are concerned because they know something about their former son-in-law that the Cary authorities do not. This is John Vasey's 4th house fire in 7 years.
There was 2 fires in the same house in Twin Lakes. There was a fire in Galena. He collected insurance on all of those, and now he's got another fire. Something's wrong.
That was the instant I knew my daughter was killed.
Ron DeLilio is a detective sergeant with the Cary Police Department.
I had a problem with the fact that we had a father outside of a burning home with his family inside. That struck me as unusual and odd.
The uncomfortable feelings gather strength when Vasey's former in-laws contact DeLilio and inform him that misfortune seems to follow John Vasey wherever he goes. With 4 fires and a suspicious death linked to Vasey, DeLilio realizes he is in over his head and reaches out for help to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. On January 27th, ATF fire investigator Jack Mullooly visits the most recent fire in Cary, Illinois. His job, find the point of origin.
Looking at the burn patterns that were left in the room, I determined that the first fuel ignited and the substantial fuel that led to the room going to flashover was in the corner of the living room.
Mullooly believes the most likely point of origin to be a large, overstuffed chair found in the corner of Vasey's living room. With no smokers in the house and no electrical appliances near the chair to ignite it, it seems likely the fire was set. That suspicion deepens when investigators find 2 smoke alarms in the house, both disabled. Piece by piece, they take each fire apart, looking through old photos for any hint of foul play. The more agents look, the more they find. Cary in 1998, Galena in 1996, Twin Lakes in 1993. 3 fires, all once classified as accidents, all now believed to have been set. Even as agents develop evidence, their suspect is on the move. John Vasey is back in Galena, where there are fears he will bring more bad luck into someone's life. A year and a half after the fire in Cary, Illinois, John Vasey has yet another fiancée, and it appears yet another potential victim. ATF agents contact the woman and share Vasey's history and investigators' suspicions.
Initially, she was in denial. She wasn't interested in hearing what we had to say. But she thought about it for a while, and then she recontacted us.
Vasey's new girlfriend shares with investigators an email from John, one that reads like a blueprint culled from the remnants of his past. Vasey writes, "What if something happened and you were incapacitated? Get 2 insurance policies, $250,000 each. 5 to 10-year term policies that are convertible to whole or universal, with accidental death benefits naming me beneficiary. That way, if something happened, which it's not going to, the children will be taken care of. Prosecutors swear out a warrant for his arrest. The charge is arson."
We charged an insurance fraud scheme because really what he did for a living was defraud insurance companies. He did it different ways, through arson, through murder, but it was all to defraud the insurance company for proceeds.
By tracking bank records, prosecutors uncover over $800,000 paid out in insurance claims over a 3-year period. The name on the check? John Vasey, a confidence man of the first order.
Every incident that resulted in an insurance windfall for John was preceded by a very severe financial crisis.
Vasey worked very little throughout the 1990s. He earned most of his income, almost all of it, from insurance proceeds.
An 18-count indictment lays bare the pattern of arson activity and the money it generated. Then prosecutors go one step further and take a second look at one accident in John Vasey's life where fire was not involved.
We figured this: if we can show that he left the house after she was already dead, there's only one person that could have killed her.
Vasey told investigators that on the day his wife died, he left the house somewhere in the neighborhood of 215 to pick up the kids from school.
We have a neighbor, though, who actually notices him leave that day. And she says he's gone at most. It was not an hour. It was probably 45 minutes he was gone. Now, we know when he gets back. He says he gets back about 3:40 or something like that. So we think he left closer to 2:45, maybe.
Prosecutors then ask pathology experts if they can get an exact fix on the moment Patricia Vasey passed.
When the first responders and the other EMTs arrived on the scene, there was already clear signs of rigor mortis.
Luckily, the emergency personnel were very good at keeping notes about her skin temperature. She was cold, and that was at 4:08. And through that kind of evidence, how cold she was, the lividity, the rigor, she had a stiff jaw and tongue, our pathologist said that she was dead 2 hours.
2 hours, which would put Patricia's time of death at approximately 2 p.m. At least 45 minutes before John Vasey is believed to have left the house that afternoon.
You wouldn't expect to find a body that was perfectly laid out, almost like she's in a coffin, with her fingers just barely interlocking. That doesn't make sense.
In January of 2001, John Vasey goes to trial on 18 counts of fraud relating to 3 separate arson schemes, including the Cary fire, where the indictments state he attempted to kill his wife and child for money. Federal prosecutors, however, do not charge Vasey with murdering his wife Patricia by inducing a heart attack. Instead, they roll that allegation into the overall indictment for fraud. After 6 weeks of trial, the jury returns a verdict of guilty on all counts. 8 months later, John Vasey is sentenced to 110 years in federal prison. One question, however, was never fully answered, and that is how Patricia Vasey died. For Patricia's parents, the question of how is not nearly as important as the simple fact that the man they believe killed their daughter is in jail for the rest of his life.
We know he had something to do with it. We know that he did it. just knowing he's out of circulation. We don't want him to kill anybody else. We don't want any other family to go through this stuff.